Well then, it's been a while since I talked about the topic of flat versus edge parries, and when I did, I didn't have much of a clue, quite frankly. So let's revisit that a little bit. It's a very contentious topic. A lot of people have different opinions and disagree. Some say you should only parry with the flat, and some say, edge only. Some say both. There are different ways of doing it. If I throw a regular downward cut, so here you see it's edge on, but it's at an angle. So it's not like this, but they actually partially contact the flat as well. Okay, another version. So this is actually a cut into my cut, right here. Displaces it, and now the thrust is online. I'm in trouble.
Notice, however, my thumb is on its side here. I'm not putting my thumb like this and taking a lot of strain. When I roll to the position, my thumb rolls with it. Right there.
Yeah, another version. So this is a true flat parry. If you look at what happens here, nice and slow, contacts the flat and comes around.
It's one of my favorite active parries where I know they're going to cut down at me, so I can roll up with the flat, which allows them to push my blade around into a good's work.
So this is also where the difference between blocking and parrying comes in. I mean, the terminology isn't used universally as far as I know. Like, different people will say parry or block or whatever interchangeably. But the way I understand it is block would be something more like I just sit here and I receive the cut statically like this without anything else. And the deflectional parry can be done either with the flat, like Erik just showed, or it can also be done with the edge, and it works the same way.
Same principle works with undercuts. Most of the time with an undercut, you want to have more of an edge parry than a flat parry. And we'll explain why in a second. If he throws an undercut at me, I'm contacting with my edge. If I put my flat here, he'll be able to just blow through my parry pretty easily. It's the same principle with rapier. You always constrain your opponent's rapier with the edge, not with your flat. Even with the false edge, I'm still catching his sword in here. I'm not trying to push my flat against his sword.
A rigid edge block is more structurally stable on the flat because the wrists are stronger in this position, and also because the blade flexes toward the flat but not toward the edge. A cut against the flat is more likely to blow right through the guard. A deflectional parry with the flat, on the other hand, works just fine. Even when blocking with the strong of the blade, a powerful strike is hard to stop with the flat.
Yeah, it's just collapsing.
If you look at archaeological evidence, there are blades where you find edge damage from edge-on-edge contact. At least that's what it looks like. And in fact, you find some blades where on the same blade you find edge damage and you find hints of cuts against the flat. Now this could be either a flat parry or it could be another thing.
If he's going to hold his sword to protect his head, for example, if I throw his workow, he's got the edge out and I come in and that stops it nicely. If he turns the flat out, however, I had to move that up so I didn't hit him in the head. So Skall's sitting in long point. He's threatening me with the tip. I'm really very intimidated. It's a good thing I know how to throw a krumpau. If I strike at the flat of his blade, it knocks it aside handily, allowing me to follow up with whatever I want. If he has the true edge out somehow in his long point, it's going to be a little harder to bind because he has more blade presence there.
This is also something to consider. if you were deathly afraid of damaging the edge. And to be fair, a damaged edge won't cut as well. And we've seen in previous tests that a nice sharp edge is required to get through even sturdy clothing. So if somebody does something like that, or if they parry with the flat, or if if you strike against their flat, there will be edge damage either way. It's not as severe as edge on edge, but edge on flat will still damage the edge, as will contacting armor, helmets, shields, even bone can sometimes cause damage. If you have two blades of similar material, then yeah, they will both be damaged, but one is not going to cut into the steel, as is the case if you have like one really hard and one really soft blade. That can happen, but if they are roughly similar, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. And it was a tool that you had to maintain and repair. They knew that. So you wouldn't go into battle expecting this thing to be perfectly pristine afterwards.
It's not a display sword. It's a functional tool.
And in a duel, there's not going to be that many exchanges anyway against one person. So you're not going to see that much damage. On the battlefield, yes, things will break, which is why you pick up stuff that someone else has dropped, because they're somewhat dead. Also, you have to take into consideration that most of the time you do not parry with the part of the blade that you actually cut with, because you cut with the upper third, essentially. It varies. On some blades it's a little further down, on some it's a little further up, but generally this is the effective part of the blade. If you cut further down, this is not going to be, like if I walk up to him and I try to strike him like this, it's not going to be that good. There are slicing draw cuts that you can use, but there's not so much. Parry, on the other hand, if he throws a cut at me, I want to catch it about in the center of the blade. In some situations...
Definitely not there.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who advocate parrying with the strong, and it makes some sense, because this is literally the strongest way you can do it. There's a reason why this is called a strong, because this is,
it's the strong.
The further up you go on the blade, the easier it is to manipulate. So yeah, as he goes here, there's no way I can hold it. If he strikes further down, I have a better chance. If he strikes all the way down, yeah. But you probably saw my hand shifting here, because that's a bit of an issue. If you mistime it just a little bit and you catch it on the strong, the fingers are right here.
There is, however, a specific occasion where you do want to catch their strike with the strong. That's crown. So if you throw a strike downward, and I move up into crown, you can really only defend with the strong, and then follow up or end him rightly.
And of course, in that case, your fingers aren't in danger anyway.
Exactly.
If you move it here, like, it doesn't matter. Even if I go down here, this is away from your fingers.
Even with an extended thumb, I'm safe.
Here's an example from sparring. Liana cuts into Erik's thrust to defend, throws a cut which Erik catches in a deflectional parry that powers his counter, which Liana again deflects and counters. Then Erik has just enough time to raise up to a block, which, by the way, happens to be a block with a flat. So you see, it's not impossible to do that. It's just mechanically weaker than a static block with the edge. Either way, you do what you can in order to not get hurt, using whatever part of the blade you can or need to. Here's an edge parry, and I caught the cut on the strong of the blade because my hands were too close to the body at the time. A bit sloppy, but it still worked. Also, you don't always have to parry. Sometimes you can respond by evading while cutting to the opponent's arms in the middle of executing the attack. And sometimes relying on the parry can get you into trouble, at least if you raise up to guard too soon. Keep in mind the techniques and strategies can vary depending on the time period, type of blade, and of course our modern interpretation of the source material. And let's not forget that very likely the historical masters didn't all agree on what was the best way to do it at all times. If you're interested in learning historical swordsmanship and are looking for manuals, schools, and HEMA gear, check out the links in the video description below. There are also links to my Facebook page, Patreon, merchandise store, and other stuff you might like. Anyway, hope you found this interesting, and thanks for watching.